All right, let's move on to our adrenal glands. Now, our adrenal glands sit above the kidneys. So here's our kidneys, there's the adrenal glands right there. All right, so when we cut into the adrenal glands, we are going to have two parts of this. We have the cortex, which is the outer region, and the medulla, which is the inner region of there. And those are going to secrete different hormones. So let's look at what's in the cortex. Now, this is a slide of our adrenal gland. So this right here is cortex, this is a medulla. Now there are three different areas of our cortex which secrete different hormones. So the first area here is at the top, and that's the zona glomerulosa. And what's going to be secreted out of here is aldosterone. Now what aldosterone does is it causes our kidneys to conserve sodium ions and excrete potassium ions. And so by conserving sodium ions, water follows sodium, so we retain more sodium ions as well. So ACTH secretion stimulates aldosterone secretion when we are stressed. Another way that we secrete aldosterone is through what is known as the renin-angiotensin system. So if our kidneys sense a decrease in blood pressure, they're going to secrete renin, which goes into our blood and decomposes a plasma protein known as angiotensinogen. So it's going to convert angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 then goes to our lungs and is converted into angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 then goes to our adrenal gland here and causes secretion of aldosterone, which then causes our kidneys to conserve more sodium, so we conserve more water, so our blood pressure goes up. All right. Next, an antagonist to aldosterone is atrionatriuretic hormone. This is secreted by the heart when our blood pressure rises. And what it does is it inhibits the secretion of renin and aldosterone secretion. So, by inhibiting their secretion, hopefully we lower our blood pressure. Aldosteronism is a hypersecretion of aldosterone. This can result in hypertension and edema. So hypertension is high blood pressure, and edema is tissue swelling. And this is due to excessive, and also this excessive secretion of potassium makes our neurons non-responsive. So it's really not a good thing. There's another thing that rises from having not enough aldosterone. This is called Addison's disease, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So the next zone here is the zona fasciculata. The zona fasciculata secretes cortisol. Once again, that is caused by ACTH secretion. So what cortisol does is it inhibits the synthesis of proteins. So it increases blood concentrations of amino acids, and it promotes the release of fatty acids from adipose, so we can use those fatty acids as an energy source. It also stimulates cells to synthesize glucose from non-carbohydrates, what is known as gluconeogenesis. All right, and so that's going to increase blood glucose levels. So all three of those things are going to produce energy molecules into our blood in a stressful situation. So if a bear came in here, I'd want to have those energy molecules in my blood so I can get those energy molecules to my skeletal muscles so I can react very quickly. The problem is if I'm under constant mental stress, I'm going to produce a lot of excessive cortisol. And what that's going to do is by depressing protein synthesis, that's going to depress cartilage and bone formation. It's going to inhibit inflammation and prevents vasodilation. And so in doing so, it's going to depress our immune response. And long term here, it can promote changes in cardiovascular, neural, and gastrointestinal functions, none of which are good. Next is Cushing's disease. So this is an excessive amount of cortisol. This is usually from a tumor or if somebody is over-medicated. What happens here is they become hyperglycemic. They have high blood glucose levels. And then they have the loss of bone and muscle proteins. They will retain water and salt, and they'll become hypertensive and edemic. They typically see somebody here will have a swollen face and a redistribution of fat to their abdomen and posterior neck. The reverse of this is Addison disease. This is the hyposecretion of aldosterone and cortisol. And what you get here is you get weight loss, your plasma glucose and sodium ion levels drop, your potassium increases, and this can result in dehydration and also hypotension, low blood pressure. All right, So, looking at, let's go back to this picture. The zona reticularis right there secretes androgens. These are male hormones, and they can be converted into testosterone or estrogens, and they contribute to the onset of puberty. In the middle there, we'll just go to this picture, is the adrenal medulla, and it's really part of our autonomic nervous system. It secretes epinephrine and norepinephrine, which we commonly just call adrenaline, and this causes the 4S response, that fight, flight, freeze, or mating response. Its effects here is it increases our heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, blood glucose levels, and decreases digestive activity.